Let me begin by addressing something that quietly worries so many people, yet is so often misunderstood. You wake up one morning, or perhaps you notice it gradually over time. Your ankles look swollen. Your shoes feel tighter. There's a heaviness that wasn't there before, and almost immediately your mind jumps to one place. Is it my heart? That fear is real, and it's understandable. For decades, we've been conditioned to associate swelling in the lower legs with serious heart problems. And yes, in some cases that connection exists. But what I want you to understand today is this: not every swollen ankle is a signal of heart failure. In fact, for many people over the age of 60, the cause is far less dramatic, yet just as important to address. As we age, the body changes in ways that are subtle but significant. Systems that once worked effortlessly begin to slow down. One of the most overlooked systems in this entire conversation is the lymphatic system. Now, this is not a system most people think about daily. It doesn't get the same attention as the heart or the lungs. It doesn't make noise when it's struggling, but it plays a crucial role in maintaining fluid balance in your body. Its job is to collect excess fluid, waste, and toxins from your tissues and move them out, keeping everything in balance. Here's where it gets interesting and important. Unlike your heart, which has a powerful pump to push blood through your body, your lymphatic system has no pump at all. It depends entirely on movement. Every step you take, every time your muscles contract, you are helping that system do its job. When you are younger, your natural activity levels, walking, stretching, moving throughout the day, keep things flowing without much effort. But after 60, life often becomes a bit more sedentary. You may sit longer, move less, or simply not engage your muscles the way you used to. And when that happens, the lymphatic system begins to slow down. When the lymph fluid slows down, it doesn't disappear. It accumulates. Gravity pulls it downward, and it settles in the lowest parts of your body, your ankles and your feet. That's when you begin to notice the swelling. It's not necessarily your heart struggling to pump blood. It's your lymphatic system struggling to keep fluid moving. Now think about how often this gets misinterpreted. Someone sees swelling and immediately assumes the worst. Anxiety sets in. Sometimes unnecessary treatments follow. But the root issue in many cases is not being addressed at all. It's not about fear. It's about understanding what your body is actually trying to tell you. And your body, in this case, is not whispering panic. It's asking for movement. I've seen many individuals become discouraged because they believe swelling is something they must simply accept with age, or worse, something that signals inevitable decline. But that is not the full picture. Swelling, especially in the ankles after 60, is often a functional issue. It's about flow, not failure. And when you begin to see it from that perspective, everything changes. You start to realize that your body is still responsive. It is still adaptable. It is still capable of improvement when given the right support. The problem is not that your system has stopped working. It's that it's not being activated the way it needs to be. Let me be clear, though this does not mean you should ignore persistent or severe swelling. A medical evaluation is always important when symptoms are new, worsening, or accompanied by other concerns like shortness of breath or pain. But what I am emphasizing here is balance. Not every symptom should immediately lead to fear, and not every solution needs to begin with medication. Sometimes the answer lies in understanding the mechanics of your own body. When you sit for long periods, especially with your feet down, fluid naturally begins to pool. When you stand still without movement, the same thing happens. Over time, this becomes a pattern. The swelling may come and go at first, but eventually it becomes more noticeable, more persistent. And because it doesn't cause sharp pain, it's easy to ignore until it isn't. But here is the empowering truth. In many cases, this is reversible. Not overnight, not instantly, but gradually and effectively. And it doesn't require extreme effort. It requires awareness. Awareness that your lymphatic system thrives on gentle, consistent movement. Awareness that small daily actions can restore flow. Awareness that your body is not working against you, it is responding to how you use it. When you understand this, you begin to shift from fear to control, from confusion to clarity, and most importantly, from passivity to action. So the next time you notice swelling in your ankles, I want you to pause before assuming the worst. Ask yourself a different question, not what is wrong with me, but what does my body need from me right now? Because very often, the answer is not complex. It is not hidden in expensive treatments or complicated routines. It is something much simpler, much more accessible, and much more within your control. And that understanding is where true change begins. Now, once you begin to understand that the swelling is often not about the heart, but about fluid that is simply not moving the way it should, the next question becomes even more important. How do we get it moving again? And this is where many people make a critical mistake. The instinct is to look for a pill, a quick medical fix, something external that can solve the problem without requiring much change. But the truth is, the system we are talking about does not respond that way. The lymphatic system does not respond first to medication. It responds to movement. This is a system designed with a very specific expectation that the body will move regularly. It was built for motion, walking, stretching, bending, even subtle muscle contractions throughout the day. All of these act like a natural pump, gently pushing lymph fluid through its channels. When that movement is present, fluid flows, waste is cleared, swelling is minimized, everything stays in quiet balance. But when movement is reduced, the system slows down, and not dramatically, not suddenly, but gradually. So gradually, in fact, that many people don't notice it happening. A little more sitting today than yesterday. A little less walking this year than last year. Over time, this becomes a pattern, and the body adapts to that pattern, even when it is not beneficial. You see, after 60, life often changes pace. There may be retirement, less daily commuting, fewer physical demands. Even social habits can become more sedentary. Hours can pass sitting in one position, watching television, reading, or simply resting. And while rest is important, too much stillness has consequences that are not always obvious at first. The muscles, especially in the legs, play a crucial role in circulating both blood and lymph fluid. When they contract, they create pressure that helps push fluid upward against gravity. Without that contraction, the fluid has no reason to move. It lingers, it settles, and eventually it accumulates. This is why you can sit for a long period and then notice your ankles appear larger than they did earlier in the day. It's not sudden weight gain. It's not instant disease. It's fluid that simply hasn't been moved. And yet, despite how mechanical and straightforward this process is, many people still search for complex solutions. They may think there must be something wrong internally that needs a strong treatment. But in many cases, the body is not asking for something strong. It is asking for something consistent. Movement is not just exercise in the traditional sense. It is not about intense workouts or pushing yourself beyond your limits. In fact, for many individuals, that approach can be discouraging or even harmful. What the lymphatic system needs is gentle, regular activation. Simple movements performed consistently throughout the day. Think about how the body was designed to function over the course of a normal day. It was never meant to remain in one position for hours at a time. Even small adjustments, standing up, shifting your weight, flexing your ankles, these are signals to the system to keep fluid moving. These are reminders to the body that it is still active, still engaged. And this is where a powerful shift in thinking occurs. Instead of viewing movement as something optional, something you do only when you have time or energy, you begin to see it as essential maintenance. Just as you would not expect your car to run smoothly without regular use, you cannot expect your internal systems to function optimally without daily movement. There is also something else to consider. When people rely too heavily on medication without addressing movement, they may experience temporary relief, but the underlying cause remains unchanged. The fluid may reduce for a time, but if the system is still inactive, the problem returns. This creates a cycle: treat, relieve, repeat, without true resolution. But when you introduce movement as a daily habit, you begin to address the root of the issue. You are not just managing symptoms, you are restoring function. You are working with your body, not against it. And this does not require hours of effort. It requires intention. A few minutes of focused movement can be far more effective than long periods of inactivity followed by occasional bursts of exercise. Consistency matters more than intensity. I have seen individuals transform their comfort and mobility simply by reintroducing regular movement into their daily routine. Not extreme changes, not overwhelming commitments, just simple, repeatable actions that signal the body to keep fluid circulating. And perhaps most importantly, this approach restores a sense of control. Instead of feeling dependent on external solutions, you begin to realize that your body has built-in systems designed to support you, systems that respond when you engage them properly. So rather than asking, "What can I take to fix this?" a more powerful question emerges. How can I move in a way that supports my body every day? Because when movement becomes a habit, not an afterthought, the lymphatic system begins to do what it was always designed to do: keep you in balance, naturally and effectively. And that is where real, lasting relief begins. Now, once you understand that movement is the driving force behind lymphatic flow, the next step becomes surprisingly simple, and this is where many people underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. There is a tendency to believe that meaningful change must come from big, demanding efforts. Long exercise routines, strict schedules, intense physical strain. But the body, especially as it ages, does not always respond best to intensity. It responds best to rhythm, and this is where a simple 5-minute daily habit can begin to shift everything. I want you to think about that for a moment. Not an hour, not a complicated routine. Just 5 minutes done with intention, done consistently. It may sound too small to matter, but when it comes to the lymphatic system, those 5 minutes can act like a reset button. Because what you are doing in those moments is not just exercise. You are reactivating a system that has been waiting for movement. You are giving your body the signal it needs to move fluid that has been sitting still, sometimes for hours at a time. Consider something as simple as elevating your legs. When you lift your legs slightly above the level of your heart, even for a few minutes, you are working with gravity instead of against it. Fluid that has been pooling in your ankles now has an easier path to move back upward. There is no strain involved, no complexity, just positioning your body in a way that supports natural flow. Or take gentle ankle rotations, sitting or lying down, slowly rotating your ankles in circles. It seems almost insignificant at first glance, but what you are doing is activating the muscles around the joints, creating subtle pressure changes that encourage lymph movement. You are essentially creating a manual pump, using your own body. Even a short, light walk, just a few minutes around your room or your home, can begin to stimulate circulation in a way that long periods of sitting cannot. Each step engages the muscles in your legs, and each contraction helps push fluid upward, away from the areas where it tends to accumulate. Now, here is where the real shift happens. It is not about choosing one of these actions and doing it occasionally. It is about creating a small, repeatable habit that fits naturally into your day. Something that does not feel like a burden. Something you do not resist. Something that becomes as routine as brushing your teeth. Because when something is simple, you are more likely to do it. And when you do it consistently, the body begins to respond. I have seen people dismiss these kinds of habits because they seem too easy. They think, if it were that effective, surely it would be more difficult. But that thinking often leads them away from what actually works. The body does not measure effort the way we do. It responds to signals, and even gentle, consistent signals can produce meaningful change. Think about the alternative. Long hours of inactivity, followed by no targeted effort to restore movement. In that scenario, the fluid remains where it is. The swelling persists, and over time it can even worsen. But introduce just 5 minutes of intentional movement each day, and you begin to interrupt that pattern. You begin to create flow where there was stagnation, and something else begins to happen as well, awareness. When you dedicate even a small amount of time each day to these movements, you become more connected to your body. You start to notice changes. Perhaps the swelling reduces slightly. Perhaps your ankles feel lighter. Perhaps the tightness in your shoes eases. These small improvements build confidence, and that confidence reinforces the habit. It becomes a positive cycle. You act, you notice improvement, and that improvement encourages you to continue. There is no need for perfection here. Some days will be better than others. Some days you may feel more motivated, other days less so. But the goal is not perfection, it is consistency. Even on days when you feel low on energy, those 5 minutes remain manageable. They remain within reach, and over time, those 5 minutes accumulate. They become part of your routine, part of your lifestyle. And the benefits begin to extend beyond just reduced swelling. Improved circulation, greater comfort, a sense of lightness in your legs. All of these are natural outcomes of supporting your body in this way. You are not forcing change. You are allowing it. You are working with the design of your body rather than against it. And perhaps the most important realization is this: you do not need to wait for symptoms to worsen before taking action. You do not need to reach a point of discomfort that disrupts your daily life. By adopting a simple habit now, you are not only addressing what you feel today, but also preventing what could develop tomorrow. This is how small actions create long-term impact. It is not dramatic, it is not immediate, but it is steady, reliable, and deeply effective. So when you think about improving your condition, do not look for something complicated or overwhelming. Look for something you can do every single day without hesitation. Something that fits into your life without resistance. Because in the end, it is not the intensity of the effort that creates change. It is the consistency of the habit. And sometimes, 5 minutes is all it takes to begin. Now, let us bring everything together into the most important understanding of all, because even when people know what is happening in the body, even when they understand that lymph flow depends on movement and that simple daily habits can make a difference, there is still one mistake that quietly limits their progress. And that mistake is inconsistency. It is one thing to know what to do. It is another thing entirely to do it regularly enough for the body to respond. The human body is remarkably adaptable, but it does not change based on occasional effort. It changes based on repeated signals. It listens to patterns, not promises. It responds to rhythm, not intention alone. This is why consistency is not just helpful, it is the real cure. When we talk about swollen ankles after 60, we are not talking about a condition that disappears because of a single action. We are talking about a pattern in the body, a pattern of fluid accumulation caused by reduced movement and slower circulation. And just as the problem develops gradually, the solution also unfolds gradually. Many people begin with enthusiasm. They try a few exercises, elevate their legs once or twice, maybe take a short walk, and when they do not see immediate, dramatic change, they become discouraged. They assume it is not working, but what they do not realize is that the body is already responding, just not yet in a way that is visible enough to convince them. Healing in systems like the lymphatic system does not announce itself loudly. It is subtle. It begins with slight reductions in heaviness, a little less tightness in the shoes, a mild improvement in how the legs feel at the end of the day. These are early signs, not final results, but they matter deeply because they are proof that the system is beginning to respond. And the only way to move from those early signs to lasting improvement is repetition. Think of it like this. If you only activate your lymphatic system once in a while, it behaves like a system that is occasionally reminded to work. But when you activate it every day, even in small ways, it begins to operate more efficiently as a default state. The body learns, it adapts, it recalibrates. This is where transformation truly happens, not in dramatic moments, but in repeated ones. Consistency also changes your relationship with your body. Instead of reacting to symptoms with fear or frustration, you begin to develop a sense of partnership with yourself. You start to understand that your body is not unpredictable. It is responsive. It is not failing. It is adjusting. And when you guide it consistently, it begins to follow a healthier pattern. But there is something even more important here. Consistency builds trust, both physical and emotional. Physically, your circulation improves, fluid movement becomes more efficient, and swelling gradually reduces. Emotionally, you begin to feel more in control, less anxious about sudden changes, and more confident in your ability to influence your own well-being. That sense of control is powerful, because when people feel helpless about their symptoms, they often become passive. They wait, they hope, they worry. But when they realize that small, repeated actions can produce real change, they shift from passivity to participation. And participation is where healing becomes sustainable. Let me also emphasize something critical. Consistency does not mean perfection. It does not mean you never miss a day. It does not mean you follow a rigid routine without flexibility. It simply means you return. You come back to the habit. You do not abandon it because of interruptions. Some days will be busy. Some days you will feel tired. Some days you may forget. But what matters is not the interruption, it is the return. Every time you return to the habit, you reinforce the message to your body, we are still working on this, and the body listens. Over weeks, this consistency begins to reshape how fluid moves through your lower limbs. The pooling reduces. The heaviness decreases. The swelling becomes less frequent, less intense, and in many cases, significantly more manageable. But beyond the physical changes, there is something deeper happening. You are building a lifestyle that supports circulation instead of resisting it. You are no longer leaving your body in long periods of stillness without correction. You are actively maintaining flow. And maintenance is the real secret, because health is not only about treating problems when they appear. It is about maintaining systems so they function well enough that problems are less likely to persist. So when I say consistency is the real cure, I am not speaking in exaggeration. I am speaking in principle. The lymphatic system does not respond to occasional attention. It responds to daily engagement. It responds to habits that become part of who you are, not just what you try. And once that understanding settles in, the approach becomes simpler. You stop searching for complex solutions. You stop waiting for sudden change. Instead, you focus on what you can do today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day. Because in the end, it is not the intensity of a single effort that restores balance. It is the quiet power of showing up again and again, allowing the body to remember how to flow properly. And when that consistency becomes part of your life, improvement is no longer a question. It becomes a natural outcome.